The Pennsylvania Constitution promises that all courts shall be open. The U.S. Constitution promises equal protection of the laws. But these could be empty promises if you can't afford an attorney to ensure those protections when your home, your employment, your health care, your safety, or other basic human needs are at risk.
So I was going to do it myself and just pray.
It's difficult for many lawyers to understand the laws that have to be enforced. How do we expect for lay people to understand the laws and then do what is necessary to file pleadings, to get into court, to make the correct arguments, because we are all held to the same standard, whether we be lay or legal.
The reality is that the courts are open, but your grievance will be adjudicated fairly and expeditiously, only to the extent that you are able to present your position to the court. Because of the complexity of the legal system, in most cases, that can't be done without some sort of legal assistance.
Since 1966, that assistance has been provided free of charge to over 1 million eligible families in southwestern Pennsylvania by Neighborhood Legal Services Association, a public interest law firm of highly qualified attorneys dedicated to equal access to justice under law. For some, NLSA is all that stands between a lifetime of memories and an unjust foreclosure. Leo was the victim of a predatory lender that forged his signature on papers, changing the terms of his mortgage to an adjustable rate, then sold the loan to another institution. Within 2 years, the payments on Leo's home had ballooned out of reach.
Well, since I'm presently living on Social Security and disability, it made it kind of rough to come up with those kind of payments each month. And plus my wife being in a nursing home for 11 years, it was a nightmare. I call them bandits without guns.
By the time Leo realized what had occurred, his house had been scheduled for a sheriff's sale.
That's when I went to get legal advice from the Neighborhood Legal Service. Their attorney did tell me that this is going to take time. There's no promises of what's going to happen, and it's going to be kind of a fight.
The battle lasted nearly a year, but with NLSA's help, Leo prevailed. Leo's attorney was able to delay foreclosure while presenting evidence that the original lender had committed fraud. He negotiated a reduced balance and helped Leo settle the debt with an emergency mortgage loan from the state that offered an affordable payment plan.
If it wasn't for Neighborhood Legal Services, I must be honest, I would have lost a house. They're helping the whole neighborhood out. I'm a person that takes care of my home inside and outside. There's a house across the street that's up for sheriff's sale. It's run down. The grass hasn't been cut in a year. And it takes away from the neighborhood.
Leo found NLSA through the Anti-Predatory Lending Clinic, a joint project of NLSA, private attorneys, and the Pittsburgh Pro Bono Partnership, and one of several ways NLSA works to stretch severely limited resources.
One of the things a board obviously has to do is make sure that an organization is running properly and that the proper safeguards are in place. And Neighborhood Legal Services is a very strong organization. It's well run, and it's got a history of being well run and using its money wisely.
We are constantly trying to make sure that the way we deliver services is optimized. We have developed helpline hotlines to give quick advice and referrals to clients. We have an Older and Wiser program reaching out to the elderly, to their caregivers and their families.
At NLSA, we have to prioritize our work. The clients on the board will tell you what people need. It's problems with the basic needs of every human being. People that are wrongly evicted, people that are wrongly denied disability benefits, people that are wrongly denied public assistance or food stamps. All of these things impact on our community and our way of life.
I didn't like being on welfare because I was so used to being self-sufficient, and then I had the stroke. My boyfriend was taking care of feeding me, because the food stamps wasn't enough.
Deborah was denied supplemental security income after a series of strokes left her unable to continue her career as a hairstylist.
They turned me down for my disability the first time because they said they thought I would get better within a year. But it turned out after a year and a half, I still wasn't any better. And that's when I went to Neighborhood Legal Services. Nicole went way beyond being an attorney. She had to really do a lot of stuff for me because I wasn't able to do right, or I couldn't sit too long, I couldn't think. She had all these papers showing that I wasn't able to work, and she stayed on top of it.
While Deborah survived for 18 months on public assistance and help from friends and family, NLSA gathered evidence establishing her right to benefits designed for low-income people who cannot work due to disability. At the hearing, the judge agreed that Deborah qualified for SSI and ordered benefits to be paid retroactively.
It has been really great because I've been able to pay a little bit more of my bills and not depend on my parents and my boyfriend so much.
Paying the bills is also a challenge for NLSA, as it helps thousands each year with no other place to turn for legal assistance.
We are seeing an increase in almost every area in which we practice. We are seeing more homeowners in trouble, more people laid off, denied unemployment, more families trying to cope with the economic stress and coping in dysfunctional ways. So we're turning away more people than we ever have. We need private attorney involvement in legal services. We need it desperately.
This is your calling, your profession, and you have an obligation to try to give back to others who, without the help that you provide them, would not be able to get access to courts.
It's really a condition of our employment, of our license. We're given by the state a monopoly to practice law. We're obliged by the rules of professional conduct to help fill the gaps that are left as a result of excluding others from the practice of law.
Volunteer attorneys who serve NLSA's clients discover that the benefits go both ways.
It's exactly the same satisfaction, absent the dollars, that you get when you finish and are successful for any client. And attorneys who do significant work for Neighborhood Legal Services are invited to attend the continuing legal education course at no expense to them.
Volunteering when you're a new lawyer is the best time to do it. At this point, you need the training, you need the experience, and here's the opportunity for you to go ahead and get to go to court, for you to go ahead and have client contact, and to apply this knowledge that is fresh in your head.
I've been doing this pro bono activity now for over 3 years, and I can tell you it's been very satisfying to have the successful outcomes and to have learned from the tougher cases as well.
NLSA also makes a positive difference to our entire system of justice.
There were situations where landlords believed they had the right to simply lock out a person, put their possessions on the street. We changed that system. Now it is assumed that due process will take place, and in fact, when Neighborhood Legal Services gets involved, it is due process.
My grandson was paying the rent, he said, and my landlord was telling me, "Mamie, your grandson ain't paying the rent." And my grandson would tell me, "Well, he ain't telling the truth, so you don't worry till I worry." And I said, "All right."
Mamie had authorized her grandson to receive her Social Security checks and pay her bills. After the grandson failed to pay rent for several months, the landlord sued Mamie, changed the locks on her apartment, and attempted to evict her.
The constable came 2 times to evict me. And then he came this 3rd time to sell my furniture. That's when we got in touch with my legal aid attorney. he took over.
Since Mamie's grandson had left her destitute, NLSA was able to stop the sale of her possessions and file bankruptcy on her behalf, which qualified her for subsidized housing.
He did what I thought couldn't be done. And my landlord told me, you won't never get a house to live in on this earth. When I told the lawyer about that, he said, well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. And you see, he took me out of a damp basement. He put me in a nice apartment. Of course, I tell people about him now, how he saved what I had. You see, I got all my furniture. Look where the Lord brought me from. Through him and God, what I could.
NLSA extends a hand to any person, regardless of income, who seeks protection from abuse.
When the twins were 4 years old, he snapped one night and just beat them. And we left, and that started the divorce proceedings. And then we went through a custody battle that took 6 years.
After depleting her life's savings and legal fees, Brenda still was unable to end the court-ordered visits of her 9-year-old twins to the father they feared.
The visits were always a nightmare, and during one visit, my daughter, she asked him to take her to cheerleading practice. He refused, threw her up against his trailer, hit her. My son tried intervening. When they came home, they were still petrified.
That's when Brenda contacted an attorney at NLSA.
He has vowed that no matter what, he is going to ensure that the kids are safe. He took everything into account, and when he went into court, he was absolutely incredible.
At the PFA hearing, NLSA presented evidence from Children and Youth Services, the State Police, and the County Crisis Shelter that resulted in a final protection order that stopped all unsupervised visits and all phone contacts between the father and children for 3 years.
Everything turned around, and I feel safer for the children, and they feel safer because there is a supervisor there. Right now my son's in the gifted program. He plays all sports, and he's good at them all. My daughter is very, very high achieving, A's and B's. With the help of Neighborhood Legal Services, my family can actually have a normal life.
NLSA also is helping to improve lives through its extended family, the gifted men and women who have served with NLSA earlier in their careers. Many have gone on to the bench and the legislature. Others have served as justices of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, including the late former Chief Justice Ralph Cappy, whose distinguished career embodied a lifelong commitment to equal access.
There is a gap in terms of equal access for many citizens of our community, not only our community, but nationally. I can assure you that it is at the forefront of the minds of every Chief Justice in America. Quite frankly, it comes down to not having enough volunteers and not having enough funds to support organizations such as the Neighborhood Legal Services.
The good news is that we have everything it takes to close that gap in southwestern Pennsylvania. Thousands of private attorneys who can make a difference by getting involved.
It is so easy. You just call NLSA and say, I want to volunteer, and there's all these different projects that they can plug you into, regardless of what area of law you practice it.
A generous community whose donations in any amount extend the reach of NLSA.
People who are trained, who are paid very little money to represent clients, and they need our support. It's just basic.
And lawyers and lay people alike who understand that we all have a stake in equal access to justice.
We are all officers of the court and champions of justice. We are all citizens of the communities in which we live. To the extent that the legal system is performing adequately, fairly, and efficiently, we all benefit from that. And again, to the extent that it isn't, we're losing out as citizens.
Equal justice under law is something that we should not strive for, but something that we need to achieve.
And together, we can.